2016 Reno County Planning Commission meeting to order. Staff, you want to call the roll?
Martin?
Here.
Seltzer? Here. Macklin? Buchanan? Jorns? French?
Yeah.
And Gertson.
Here. Thank you for the four that are here tonight. We're missing three, excuse me. We wish them all well. In your packets, I guess, hope you had a chance to review the minutes from the last meeting, from the August 19 meeting. Chair will entertain a motion.
Move to accept minutes of last meeting.
Second?
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor of approving the August 19 minutes, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. The minutes approved. To protect the rights of all parties involved and to give an opportunity for everyone to speak, the Reno County Planning Commission follows a specific procedure outlined in the handouts in your chairs. During the hearing, there will be an opportunity for comments from the applicant, the planning and zoning staff, and members of the audience. Members of the Planning Commission may ask questions or request additional information at that time. I'm going to add that if you have questions for the applicant, please address the board. He's here, he can hear. Please address the board and he can address those questions in his rebuttal time. If the Planning Commission makes a recommendation after tonight's public hearing, this case will be presented to the county commissioners within approximately 2 weeks. Mark will notify the applicant of the date. Anyone else who is interested can contact Mark or the county commission for the exact date. Regardless of whether or not the Planning Commission approves or disapproves of the proposed conditional use permit, it is possible to file a protest regarding the decision. Please contact Mark for the process that must be used to file this protest. Okay, we have, for old business, we have a case 2021-07, a request by T Real Estate LLC, applicant Mid-States Materials LLC, Rich Eckert, for a conditional use permit to establish an aggregate storage yard on land zone agricultural land district. The property is located on the east side of North Wilson Road, approximately 1,200 feet south of the intersection of North Wilson Road and West Nickerson Boulevard. I need to have a motion from the board to take this off the table.
So move.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Staff, you want to call the roll on this one?
Martin?
Yes.
Seltzer?
Yes.
French?
Yes.
Gertson.
Yes. I'll formally open the hearing regarding the case number 2021-07. Have any of the Planning Commission members had any outside contacts regarding this case?
No.
Do any of the Planning Commissioners have any conflict of interest in this case?
No.
Okay, would the applicant please step forward?
Good afternoon, Rich Eckert. I'm mindful of the admonition not to repeat everything that has gone on, so I'm not going to do that. You've heard enough about this case from our side, and I don't know what else I can add, but I do have one piece of information is that I have exchanged a potential contract with the city of Hutchinson. I know that their public works department has looked at it, and it's in their city attorney's office right now, so we are moving forward with that as well. The line that we're talking about here is the South Kansas-Oklahoma rail line. And, you know, rail lines are important infrastructure, and they exist where they are. They're so expensive to have new ones that you really only see major industries constructing new rail lines. So I followed the Skoll back to Wichita, and I looked at various spurs that they have through the city of Wichita. Now, I'm going from north to south. You can find all these on Google Earth. But here's a spur with a very heavy industrial use, much bigger than us, much more heavy use than us, than we're proposing. But you can see that within about 1,100 feet, there's a subdivision sitting on the water. By the way, and here's a better look at it, and you can see those aren't really, those are fairly nice houses, and you can get a look at how close it sits to that spur. And just for the heck of it, I looked up that one particular house that I drew the line to, and in Sedgwick County, as you can see, it's almost $700,000 as an appraised value. Following the line to the south, that house that we looked at is just sitting up here. Here's the next industrial use. This is CMC concrete. Again, there's a spur that's right up in here that I don't know if they use a spur or not, but there's certainly a spur there that's usable. And you can see they just built subdivisions all the way around it. Continuing, this is actually the Skull Rail Yard. And I couldn't count the number of spurs that are in there, or passing tracks or storage tracks. There's at least 5. But again, the use that this railroad yard has is far, far in excess of what we're proposing today. The noise and everything else that these rail cars making, of them bumping each other and trading off, and you can see what happened to their immediate south. Continuing onward, this again is the Skull again over here, but I wanted you to see the intersection that they use, again, with multiple tracks and a curve. I think this is probably less safe than what we're talking about on the road that we're proposing to use. And again, subdivision roads right here. Continuing south, this is the Corneo Stone Yard. This is kind of what we're proposing, although this is a grand scale. Again, you can see the spur, it ends right here. It pretty much ends in a subdivision. I backed it out a little bit. This line right here is 1,000 feet. So you can see the radius of what they would have to notify if they were living by the 1,000-foot rule. The stone yard is over 28 acres. We're only proposing 12. The spur, I didn't even bother counting, sorry, jumped ahead. The number of cars that are currently sitting there. But again, far more than what we're proposing. And then finally, I wanted to show the entrances to the subdivision. It actually shares the single entrance and exit to the Corneo Stone Yard. Subdivision comes out here, Corneo exits here. The next subdivision is down here, just a mere block away from this major entrance and exit. There's another difference. These actually use semi-trucks to go in and out, something that we're not going to do. So I just kind of wanted to give you, I know that the testimony has been that we're going to, I don't know what the word is, harm the neighborhood, destroy the neighborhood, but a mere 45, 50 minutes away, you can see a stone yard, not even comparable to what we're proposing, that sits right next to that beautiful subdivision. That's all I have.
Staff, do you have anything?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Give me a minute here. Mark Von Atchen, County Planner. So as you may recall, Board, last month you asked me specifically to go back over my original staff report that I wrote in June at the first public hearing that we had on this, at the first time we all met. And so I did that. And what I did with my report is I essentially just copied it over and created a supplemental report dated September the 9th and provided that information to the board and the applicant. What I did with that is I just took each category that I typically do, and I reviewed it for accuracy based off of the testimony that we heard at all of the public meetings we've had on this case. As you may recall, there was some confusion, I think, on how the applicant was going to access the property, and then there were some changes, and staff was unsure of how they were going to do that. The board was unsure. So based off of that, I made adjustments to my report. In reviewing that report, if there were no changes from the original staff report, then I wrote that in italics in my staff report there. So you can see what didn't change in the report and then what did change in the report. And so I'm not going to go over the entire report. I do have some slides to kind of show the board based off of some of the questions that the board had at several of these meetings that we had. What I did with my original staff report is I carried over the original conditions of approval, and then I added some other ones based off of testimony that we heard from the applicant, as well as concerns from the audience members here that had provided testimony, and so you can see those at the end of my report. But I just kind of want to go over and clarify some of the issues that we had here. I know there was some discussion from the board members as where the two houses were, otherwise known as the Yagi Plantation, and you can see the houses are up in here. The stone yard is proposed to be down in here, and so what I did is I just drew a straight line between the two, not taking into account traveling out to the road and then down Wilson Road and in, just a straight line, and that turned out to be about 4,277 feet, or about 0.81 of a mile. The next one we did, we had a lot of people concerned that live in the city of Willowbrook, and so I did the same thing here. City of Willowbrook is essentially in here, and doing a measurement from there to the northern edge of the stone yard here, and all I did here is just I picked a random house, not from the city boundary line, but just a random house that came out to about 4,696 feet from the city of Willowbrook. There's 5,280 feet in a mile, so you're looking at about 0.89 of a mile from the city of Willowbrook to where the northern edge of the stone yard would be. I know those questions came up from some board members as to where are these houses. The houses, again, are located right here, and then the city of Willowbrook up in there. There's some other houses that are across the road from those houses, and those are up in here. You heard testimony from citizens from this area as well. The next thing we heard about is like the concern about the safety along Wilson Road here. On Google Earth, you could pretty much make out where the stop sign was, and so I drew a line from the stop sign to the edge of the railroad tracks here. Not scientific, just kind of what I can measure, and it looked like it was about 43 feet between those two. As you know, people typically aren't going to stop right at the stop sign. They're going to pull up a little bit further so they can have a clear sight line from the curve that comes up here, and also traffic that's going down from the southeast. But that distance measured out to 43 feet. Concerns were raised about where the levee was on the property. The stone yard property line roughly is that faint yellow line right there. The levee situation is right here. Okay, so the levee crosses Wilson Road right in here. The applicant is now proposing not to do that, so there's going to be no traffic along Wilson Road, but the levee situation is right here. Then you go the railroad tracks, and then Nickerson Boulevard, and then the levee continues on to the east. What I did also was I did a Google Earth shot of where the actual levee is, and you can see the levee is right here, so the applicant will travel parallel to the railroad tracks, go up and over the levee, continue down the railroad right-of-way, and then into the proposed stone yard here. Obviously, there's going to have to be some modifications done to the levee and also some modifications done to the railroad right-of-way if this is approved ultimately by the Board of County Commissioners. And so they are looking at having this engineered, because the ultimate responsibility is to protect the integrity of the levee. And so something's going to have to be done with that. That's why he mentioned the contract with the city of Hutchinson, because they're going to be heavily involved in reviewing anything that goes on with the levy situation. So I believe those are the slides that I have for your review. I would like to remind the board also that, we're not here to necessarily discuss what goes along with the offloading of the stone, nor what goes along with the railroad right-of-way. That's not what our intent is. Our intent is to look at the land use that is potentially going to be occurring on this property and decide if that is an appropriate land use for the area. So, any recommendation that you would make, I would remind the board that you need to base those off of the factors that you see listed in my report. Your options really are to recommend approval of this request based off of those factors. You can also recommend denial of the request, also based off a review of the factors. And lastly, if you need additional information or want to think about this longer, you certainly have that right to table the request. So, with that, I would stand for any questions from the board.
Since we're basically only considering those 12 acres, that's a storage area, but we still can require a signed agreement with the city for the maintenance of the levee or how the levee's going to be maintained, is that correct?
Yes, yeah, that would be part of any type of potential approval, is that we would require them to have a signed agreement with the city of Hutchinson. And you saw that in my conditions there.
Even though it's not part of the 12 acres?
It's not part of the 12 acres technically, but it is a type of infrastructure that needs to be maintained by the city, so yes.
Similar to the discussion earlier about an agreement with the township about maintaining the road, be a similar kind of thing.
Something similar to that, yes. So, yeah, even though we're not necessarily dealing with railroad right-of-way and what goes on there, yeah, the levee is a different type of situation where that is infrastructure that's owned by the city, and so we need to be able to take their interest into consideration. I did include in your site plan the updated site plan that Mr. Eckert had on the screen last month, just so you guys can see that it was just a photocopy, but I did include that in your packet as well. So that's what is under consideration for tonight. The site plan has not changed from last month, but I did want to bring that up, that I did include that in your packet.
Mark, I got one question, I guess. Earlier you had mentioned, I think, that there was a kind of a legal dispute over property lines up around the railroad right away or whatever. And, there's people have been putting out information, well, that, could limit the turning radius of the trucks and whatnot for, offloading the aggregate. What can you tell us about that?
I don't really know anything, about the dispute or anything. All I would say is that's really not something that the board should really be looking at. It is important, obviously. I mean, we don't want a situation where trespassing can, occur. But again, that's not really the prerogative of this board here. That's really between the property owners and even, the applicant here to make sure that no trespassing situations really occur. That'd be a private matter. That wouldn't be something that this board would take under consideration like that.
Any other questions for staff?
I don't have any.
Thank you, Mark. Is there anyone from the audience that would like to comment on this case? Please come up to the podium and state your name and your address for the record, please, and you have 5 minutes.
I'm Chris Osmeyer. My address is P.O. Box 40 in Keachai, Kansas. I am the farm manager for adjoining property owner Full Buck Moon Farms. Joins a railroad spur and the proposed plant site. I also have a Class A commercial driver's license, and kind of goes along with the last question. At the last meeting, it's brought up about that they had measured it and could turn trucks around at the railroad spur The property line is 50 foot from the center of the railroad. My pickup turning radius is, or diameter is 50 foot. So I'm not sure how a truck's gonna turn around without getting onto the property line, get on the neighbor's property. The fence currently is not on the property line. The property line, it's about 10 to 15 foot south of the property line. Property line is approximately where the electric telephone poles are for the electric line that goes along the spur also. That's all I have. Thank you.
Hello, Lucinda Pelagian, 4603 Nickerson Boulevard, Ione Yagi. Mr. Eckert showed us a lot of pictures from the Wichita area showing current stone yards that are near residential neighborhoods. It's likely that those neighborhoods were developed after the stone yard was already there. He didn't say one way or the other if that were the case. And people have the option to purchase in that area or not, based on the surroundings. We all chose to purchase in this area based on the surroundings, which is agriculture. We have farms, we have homes that have large lots, and chose those locations for the peace and quiet of that, the countryside. I also think that even though I know that the conditional use permit is for this 12 acres, but you cannot not take into consideration the trucks that are going to be crossing Wilson Road from the spur where they will be offloaded. Every picture there showed the spur directly on the plant site. So that's not the case here. It's across the road, and those measurements that Mark came up with are true from the 12 acres, but they are not true from where that railroad spur is. It is 1,500 feet to my driveway. It is only about 500 feet to the very first home on West Nickerson Road, which is quite close. That's where a majority of the noise is going to occur because they're going to have to shovel out those rocks and dump them into these trucks in order to move them across Wilson Road to the 12 acres. So even though the conditional use permit is for this 12 acres, it's going to affect us on the other side of the road. And everything that Chris Osmeyer said is true. That 50 feet is not movable from where the spur is. First of all, there's power lines. You can't go through power lines. But that is not movable. And I don't see how it's possible that these trucks are going to make a turn. And if they have to do a multi-point turn, it's going to be even noisier and louder and create more dust and more danger. And that's all I have to add for today upon everything else that I have written and voiced before. Thank you.
My name's Randall Smith, I live on St. Elmo Drive. We've all heard everybody speak before. To touch on what she said about, seeing some pictures of what's happening in Sedgwick County people, what they're okay with and what we're okay with are two different things. Sedgwick County citizens didn't elect you. People that elected you are right here. Whatever the reason, you've been told, well, you should take that into accord, or you should take what Mr. Mark has written into accord. What you need to take in court is that nobody in that community, here's the people that elected you, and nobody in that community is okay with it. If you want to really know why, I'm going to my mother's house for the weekend, which is about 3/4 of a mile from their Nest City facility, south of Butterfields on 96 Highway in Nest City. Come have a barbecue and a beer with me and listen to the beep, 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 beeps nonstop of backing up payloaders, crunching of rocks. The people that elected you, where you should make your decision, the people that you were hired to represent their will are sitting here telling you, we don't want the noise, the aggravation, the commotion, the traffic of industry in the county, and especially not less than a mile from where we live, and try to, have peace. That's all I gotta say.
I'm Ricky Vanderpool. My kid goes to Reno Valley, and they get him off the road at Wild Rose Edition, and he has to walk down that blacktop road for about 2 or 3 blocks down the edge of the blacktop on that highway to go down St. Elmo Lane. This is not just my kid, it's many kids in different areas. I'm just concerned about the students. There's like 400 Nickerson High School kids, and that's the main route in and out. And the truck traffic, and they're gonna be in a hurry, and that stop is small. And the buses for Reno Valley and the grade school and the high school, and these kids are in a hurry. They drive crazy. And there's gonna be a kid die. It's gonna be your guys' fault if you pass this.
Excuse me, Mark, can you put a map up where he can show us where that is?
He also didn't point out how far the school was from that distance.
Yeah, and on those maps they showed, they didn't show
Any
where schools
schools.
are from
They
there.
All our
didn't
kids
show
have to walk from
any
Wild Rose to.
Wait a minute,
I was just trying to help, from Wild Rose to St. Elmo, they have to walk.
wait, y'all got your turn. I asked him a question, I want to know what you're talking about. Where the kids are walking it, that's
They're walking
That's what
right down
concerns
the
me.
highway. I mean, is this Wild Rose right here?
Wild Rose is right there,
Where?
to your right.
Is this Wild Rose?
Yeah. That's Elmo and then Wild
They're
Rose.
dropped off in here, and there's a,
No,
Say
it's
no more.
across the way.
where? Is this Wild Rose?
This one, they're dropped off right here.
They're dropped off here, and they have to walk down the highway to come to our house.
okay, and that's the old,
Randall's kid,
yeah, that's the old highway, right?
yeah.
Okay, all right, thank
And
you.
there's other kids that do it.
Yeah.
And they walk that track. They'll walk that track home from practice that they're gonna be running down.
Okay.
And one measurement he didn't put on there
Yeah,
was
to
how
go
far
there.
the school was from the aggregate plant.
Right there.
On his way. But one thing you don't take in consideration is at the time that they're gonna run these trucks, that corner going into Reno Valley gets backed up every morning. And there's been a train sitting on there several mornings, and it backs clear up to almost that overpass.
Okay.
I'm Kathy Burrell, and I live on Pennington Road, so I see all of this going on. I manage the homes at Yagi, and I also have grandchildren that drive to Nickerson High School. I know that we're not supposed to count the intersection in the train, but that intersection is bad, and I just hope it doesn't become like what you have out here in South Hutch since the Loves came in, whoever approved that. That is the most dangerous with McDonald's and Loves and the highways, and that's what you're gonna make us have out there where all of our kids are going to school.
Is there any other comment from the audience? Okay, have the applicant can rebut the comments that were made.
Just a couple of things. Mr. Seltzer, I don't think you were here at the last meeting. We agreed at the last meeting that we would not mess with the disputed land. And we had our company the president of Capital Trucking look at this, and the size of the trucks that we're going to use, the turning radius is sufficient. But again, it's on the rail spur, so that's kind of our call. If we screw it up, then we screwed it up, right? But almost everything that you're hearing is a complaint about the activity at the rail spur, almost everything. And, I mean, if this doesn't pass, this doesn't stop us from using the rail spur. All it does is I have to come back to you in a couple of months with a new spot that might be further away, but you know what further away means? It means more mileage on our trucks. We'll be driving them further. The absolute safest thing to do is to get this stone yard as close to the rail spur as possible. That's a fact. I don't know how else to convey that. We move that stone yard away, we're increasing the truck traffic. So, and the point of showing the Wichita pictures wasn't necessarily spur first, neighborhood first. It shows that the stone yards live in company with massive subdivisions. Stone yards much bigger than ours, with entrances that are more dangerous than this one. And they've managed to find a way to make it work there. Thank you.
Staff, do you have any comments about it?
I just have one comment, and I was remiss in pointing out when I was giving the distances the houses are to the property, I failed to mention that just because the houses, which are on this picture, we're up in here, are 4,600 feet away, that doesn't mean that the property isn't necessarily affected by, her property line is like right here, like she pointed out, and it's right along the rail spur, along with this property here, which is right across the street. So I was kind of remiss, I wanted to point that out, that, yeah, the houses are way up here, but the property is like right across the street from that as well. But there's no structures here, it's just part of her land, so that's all I have.
May we get up and speak again?
Say again?
Are we allowed to get up and
If
speak?
you've had a chance, I mean,
Well, I didn't know, based on what he said.
Cece got to get it.
I will allow 3 to rebut. If you want to rebut, you have 3 to rebut.
Okay, I would like that. I just disagree with Mr. Eckert that whether or not he gets this cup for this 12 acres, that it will make a difference whether if they still use the spur, those trucks will be loaded and they'll be driven away and that's it. If they get the 12 acres, they're going to be crossing back and forth Wilson Road, and then there's going to be all of the people that are going to come to buy the aggregate that are going to be pulling in every day from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., whatever the hours are, Monday through Friday. I know he said they won't do it on Saturdays, thank God. And that will increase the trucking traffic tremendously, tremendously. I know I can't stop him or anybody else from using that spur. In the 5 years that I've been there, only one person ever has used it for a summer. And they destroyed my property, they took down trees, they shoved things over, they left trash all over the place. It was a disaster. And that is why I went to the trouble to hire a surveyor and have it properly surveyed so I knew exactly where my boundaries are and what my rights are. So it will make a big difference. There will be substantially less trucking traffic if they don't have that 12 acres.
I agree with her. No, we can't keep them from using the spur, but how we keep them from using the spur is you represent us and you deny their wishes to get anywhere close to that, so that they have to find a spur someplace in town where they can get property where the noise and commotion of industry belongs. That's how we stop them. You guys represent us and you deny them. If it's not profitable, they won't use it.
Anyone else? Board, do you have any questions?
I'm going to make one comment just to your comment about us as elected representatives. None of us is elected, we're appointed, and we're not appointed as representatives, we're appointed as people to evaluate land use. And so the people that represent you are really your county commissioners. So it's a little bit different role.
Is that who hired you?
They don't hire us, we're not paid.
Who appoints you?
We're appointed by county commissioners, so
You're appointed by the people.
your representative
Okay,
is the
same
county
as.
commissioner. It's just a slightly different role. I just wanted to point out we're not elected officials, we're not paid, we're just volunteers.
Okay.
Any other comments, questions?
I've got a comment. Where the Nickerson Boulevard crosses the levee, that creates a hill. And we went out there last Sunday, and coming from the east or southeast and going over that hill, from the time you go over the hill and the intersection becomes visible at 60 miles an hour, which is the speed limit, is about 6 seconds. That's not scientific, but that's about right. Which is enough time if someone's paying attention and someone has already pulled onto the road, that's enough time to get slowed down. The problem that I have is the trucks are entering that intersection at an angle which they're looking back behind them to the right, which is hard to do in a dump truck. And my concern is they won't see someone coming down the road at 60 miles an hour.
Anything else? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing portion of this case. Board and staff gave us several options in his report. I don't know what your wishes are. I know we have several of our members that are not present here tonight.
My thoughts on it, when this application first came to us, I felt like it was kind of a mess. And I was really tuned into lots of the comments that we were hearing about safety and just the amount of traffic, the damage to the township road. But I feel like the applicant has addressed almost every one of those issues that's particularly relates to the property that we're to look at. I still have some concerns about safety, but I feel like they're a little bit outside of what we can make a recommendation on. And maybe it's something that, if there is an issue with safety, as Jack mentioned, with trucks turning onto that road, maybe that's something the county needs to be looking at. Is there something they can do to mitigate that? I just feel like we kind of have our hands tied in that this is a review of the use of that 12 acres, and the applicant can continue to use that railroad spur no matter what our decision is. So that's kind of where I'm landing.
Yeah, I mean, Lisa, I definitely hear what you're saying and understand that, but to me, there's the use of that land also has ancillary effects. The traffic and the safety issue are those are a direct result because of the use of that land. So I have a real hard time trying to separate those, because it's all one and the same in my mind.
Guess where I'm at, I guess we need to make a decision on whether we let me phrase it this way. I'll entertain a motion to accept, to deny, or to table.
I'm going to make a motion to accept, to approve the conditional use permit based upon the recommendations of the staff and with the conditions that he proposed within our report. See if I get a second.
We hear a second?
I'll second that.
Been moved and seconded. Staff, please call the roll.
Martin?
No.
Seltzer? No. French?
Yes.
Gertson?
Yes.
So that motion failed, tie to tie, so we would need another motion. So we have something in the affirmative.
I'll state again, I'll entertain a motion to approve, motion to deny, or a motion to table.
I might remind the board, it needs to be based off of the factors, so I would need to have something from the factors so that you feel this is not supportive. If you-
Other
if you
than
choose-
table-
if-
other than table.
Other than table, that's, you took the words out of my mouth, yeah, other than if the board decides to table and wait for other members to be present.
I would make a motion to table it. I hate to inconvenience everybody, but poor people, I don't think we're gonna change our minds.
I might add that the motion should maybe include table it to October 21st
Okay,
at 4:30 PM at this building.
okay.
I'll second that.
Been moved and seconded. Staff, call the roll.
Martin?
Yes.
Seltzer?
Yes.
French?
No.
Gertson?
Yes. Okay. Case 2021.
So just to clarify, we'll come back on that third Thursday, October 21st, and you will open up the meeting. There won't be any public comment. There won't be any presentation by the applicant nor by staff unless you have a regulatory question for me or for Mr. Britton, on that. It'd just be strictly deliberation based off of the evidence that you have presented to you tonight. There's no more public comment. There's no more public information submitted. Okay?
Okay.
Fair enough.
How many of you guys are missing?
3. We got some people that are out ill right now, so, yeah. Sorry about that, but that's the way it is. Yeah, they're out sick, so they could not be here tonight.
Is it public information who they are?
Sure. Bruce Buchanan and Ken Jorns and Holly Mackey. Those three they're out sick.
Thank you guys for this. Comment to you, Russ. This job is making you look old.
Yeah, just one facet of it, thanks. Okay.
Morale booster there.
Just, that's a morale booster, yeah.
That's what you need to hear, isn't it?
Yeah. Believe it or not, today I feel old. I don't know why. Okay, we'll move on to the next case, 2021-09, a request by Reno County. Applicant Reno County Sheriff's Department for a conditional use permit to establish a firearms range and training facility on land zone agricultural land district. The The property is located on the east side of South Mohawk Road, approximately 1/2 mile north of the intersection of South Mohawk Road and West Blanchard Avenue. Do any of the planning commissioners have any conflict of interest in this case?
No.
Have you had any outside contact with the applicant?
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
I did have a contact from Mr. Tedder earlier today with these questions, but he brought them for you all. That's all the contact that I had.
Okay, thank you. Applicant, you're at the podium. Please state your name and address for the record, and you've got the floor.
Hello, I'm here with the Reno County Sheriff's Office. My name is Dustin Van Syke. I'm currently a detective sergeant with the Sheriff's Office and have been for about the last 11 or 12 years. As part of my current duties, I am assigned as the current range master over all of the firearms program and training and everything to do with that. Our address is still the 206 West First here in Hutch, and that's a contact number direct to the Sheriff's Office if you have any additional questions later. I'm here today to talk about the conditional use permit for a firearms range, which we are intending to build on land owned by the county by the landfill off of Mohawk Road, about 1/2 mile north of Blanchard. This is the general layout from what our planning is that I submitted to Mark Vonachin earlier. It's about 20.6 acres or so. It's 1,500 by 600 foot. The south property line, or the south boundary for the range property, is 50 feet. It's set 50 feet north of the actual property line for the 152 acre plot that the county already owns. Part of that has to do with plans that the landfill has for future expansion as far as waterway and stuff like that. So we are set an additional 50 feet north of the property line. We have provisions in here for a large parking lot to accommodate some of our equipment, as well as students that attend trainings out there. We also have provisions for a 40 by 60 training building, which will accommodate more than just firearms training. It'll also include things from defensive tactics all the way through any other classroom type trainings that we need to conduct throughout the year. Like I said, the location is on the landfill property. It's on the southeast corner of Clark and Mohawk Road, and it's about 1/2 mile north of Blanchard. You can see down here in the corner, that's about the offset as an overview that we're looking at, with the 50-foot offset from the south property line. I pulled up Google Maps just to get directions and distances between where the proposed range is at and the surrounding residences in the area. All of the residences are over 2,500 feet from any corner. The closest one being, if I remember right, is the 2,600. Everything else is over 3,000 feet. Our plans are to include up to a 400-yard long-range rifle section in order to use for our precision rifle and sniper teams. We will also have provisions for a 25, 50, and 100-yard ranges, all of which will shoot to the west. So the majority of the shooting is going to be to the west, with the exception of the long-range precision shooters, which will be to the east. As part of the provisions, like I said, we're intending to put a 40 by 60 training building, which will include bathroom storage and a classroom area. As far as wastewater, most likely from talking to the health department, it looks like the area, we haven't done the soil test yet, but it looks like it's going to be conducive for a lagoon type system. We can't use well water for anything other than irrigation purposes out there due to the location and the groundwater and the outflow potentials from the landfill. I have already submitted a letterhead request to the city of Hutchinson since they brought water under Clark Road for the landfill building. There is water south of Clark Road. I have not heard back from them yet as to whether or not they will approve it or not. If they do, we will have to run a water line from Clark Road down there to get potable drinking water. Alternatively, we will get Culligan or bottled water to supply for students out there for drinking, and anything that they bring with them. All of the roads and parking area on the range property are planned to be either dirt or gravel, some type of sand. There's provisions for a couple concrete pads for shooting pads. And we'll also use overhead lights during training scenarios, which may include flashing red and blue lights, backlighting and overhead lighting for cleanup, as well as like dusk to dawn lights for security purposes. The type of accommodations we're going to make or use the range for is going to include statutory requirements for law enforcement officers to be able to meet standards for the year per Kansas Seapost. So we'll have annual training out there for all of our department. Courses will include everything, including basic handgun, rifle, SWAT schools, open range days. Sheriff's Office provides an instructor and ammunition to all of our employees twice a month for them to come out on their own time, where we can kind of give them one-on-one training to make sure that they're proficient when they're out in the public. We also have snipers on our team. I've also already been talking to the Hutchinson Correctional Facility, who has snipers. They don't have the ability to shoot long range at their current facility, so that's something they would like to take advantage of potentially in the future. We also have a 19,000-pound armored vehicle as part of the SWAT team with the Sheriff's Office. There are specialized types of trainings we would have to do with that to keep everybody current and able to drive that large equipment. Taser classes, OC and CS, which is chemical munitions that like tear gas, that kind of stuff that you would see on the news. We can utilize it for all that type of training, as well as defensive tactics and drone training. Our normal hours of operation are typically anywhere from right around 7 a.m. until about 8 p.m., depending on when we flex the hours to make sure that we run 2 shifts from 6 to 6, so we like to make sure that everybody has a chance to get out there on open range days. We also conduct night shoots. We work nights, weekends, and holidays, so law enforcement it's necessary for us to be able to maintain standard also in low light and dark situations. Typically, when we've done this in the past, our shooting has ended no later than 10 p.m., and there's only about 6 of those a year, and that's on the high end. Out of the year, there is up to about 115 days of training that we conduct with the Sheriff's Office. Not all of that is firearms related. That includes all of the non-firearms related trainings also that we would use the facility for. And this facility we're planning is for law enforcement purposes only. It won't be open to the public. I'm not going to bore you with reading a bunch of statute today, but these are the statutes which the state of Kansas has adopted to regulate firearms ranges. They are all intended to regulate private firearms ranges. However, they have adopted a section under the Wildlife and Parks 115-22-1, which adopts the safe shooting practices per the NRA standards. They only adopted a portion of the NRA manual. The NRA manual is actually about 650 pages long, and I have printed off in here what the state of Kansas adopted, and it's maybe 30 pages, most of which is only like range commands, range rules, safe practices, and handling of firearms. It doesn't actually go into the details as far as how to build impact berms. However, I did pull the full NRA manual and went through to see what their specifications were so that we could at least try to meet those specifications. So in the unadopted portions of the manual, the NRA calls for a 20-foot impact berm, which would be the face or what you're shooting at. The face is supposed to be as steep as possible. Perfectly vertical would be what you're looking for. Unfortunately, with dirt, you're never going to get there. So as long as it's less than a 1-to-1. They also call for an 18 to 24-inch debris-free soil face to make sure that you don't have rocks and other pieces of particulate in there, which would cause ricochets and that kind of thing. And they call for an 8-foot side berm. Side berms run perpendicular to the impact berm and are on either side of the shooting area, just in case somebody turns to the side or whatever. It's meant to catch negligent discharges. Outside of the NRA, there are other standards in the U.S. that people follow. One of those sets of standards is from the U.S. Department of Energy. I also pulled their book when it came to building and specifications of impact berms. They call for a minimum of a 26-foot impact berm. which is more like what we are gonna follow. We are actually aiming more for that 26 to 30-foot impact berm. We're actually gonna make our side berms meet the same specification as the impact berm. So 3 sides of where we will be shooting will be completely contained up to a minimum of 26 feet. On top of the impact berms, we're also gonna put on what's called a baffle or an eyebrow, depending on what terminology you wanna use. And basically what that is a hard surface to catch any accidental ricochets. And it goes on the top of the berm, so it kind of sits at an angle off the top of the berm to catch those. As I said, we're gonna aim for an impact face as steep as possible, not less than 45 degrees. We're also gonna aim more for 36 instead of the 18 to 24 inches of debris-free soil on the face of the berm. And as I said, we're gonna go for 26-foot side berms also instead of the 8-foot recommended by the NRA. In order to maintain security of the facility, we're intending to put up a combination of both 5 or 6-foot chain link as well as 5-strand barbed wire fencing around the training area. We will have locked gates, dusk to dawn lights, and we will have potential for security cameras and alarm systems on the property down the road. As far as noise abatement, we've already talked to the Kansas Forestry Service, and we will be able to obtain trees in order to line the outside edge of the property with cedar trees as well as hardwood trees more in the center of the property in order to help abate some of the noise that we will be creating out there. That's pretty much all I have. That's our contact information.
Your side berms, how far back do they go along the sides of the range?
200 feet.
So when you have a training, typically, how many hours at a time does that last?
It depends on the type of training. Our basic handgun classes are, it's meant to be around a 36-hour class. We have been doing that in 3 days. I think we're gonna work to stretch that out over 4. So instead of 12-hour days, we'd be running the 8 to 10-hour days. Basic rifle is anywhere from 20 to 24 hours, depending on the number of students over 2 days. OC is a 1-day class, Taser's a 1-day class. The open range, like firearms, where people can come out and maintain proficiency, we run those for about 8 to 10 hours in a day usually. It just depends on how many students show up as to how much shooting will actually be done on those days.
As far as the trees you're talking about for noise abatement, you know, I live about 2 miles from the Cheney shooting range out by Lake Cheney, and, you know, I can hear every time they go out and start shooting out there. But it doesn't bother me because I shoot. But the Forest Service, I know what the trees they sell are like this tall.
Yeah, obviously,
They're not
it's
gonna
gonna take time for them to grow.
give a few years.
We're not having to put full-size ones in, no.
Yeah.
So it'll take a little bit. We also have, I mean, depending on what, like our SWAT team, several of us we're getting more and more suppressors on our gun, which help abate sound too. We don't run suppressors on handguns, but definitely our rifles, our big cal 308 rifles, we run suppressors on all of those. In fact, I mean, it's quiet enough, you don't really have to wear hearing protection even while you're firing the gun.
I noticed you have 200-foot side berm on this, on what would be the west
Yes, sir.
west shooting area. Is there any reason why you didn't extend the east shooting area 200 feet?
Part of that has to do with the north-south, the distance too. It's a much smaller berm. This berm over here, the heights will be the same, it's just a smaller berm.
Okay.
The heights will be the same on this one also, which is a smaller berm. That's just because it's more limited use. You're only having 1 or 2 people shoot on a berm at a time as opposed to 10.
Application says approximately 75 days during the year, but,
Firearms related.
okay, but would there be other, you said unscheduled trainings or something besides that, or is 75 kind of total?
So I took into account the unscheduled trainings that tend to pop up throughout the year within that 75 for firearms, yes.
And does that also include, you indicated there might be other agencies that use it as well? Would they schedule those outside
I
that
factored
75?
some of those in also to come up with that number, yes.
When you're talking about students,
Yes, sir.
are these like new recruits, or do you call everybody that's out there on the range a student?
I refer to everybody that is coming out for a training as a student.
Okay.
So we hold, unlike a police department who sends their people to the academy to get their basic training, our people all start in the jail facility. Because of the nature of their job and transporting inmates and stuff like that, they don't go to the academy right away because they're not certified, all of them, right away. But we have to take measures in order to provide them with training and the capability to transport inmates long before they ever go to the academy. So there are people that come out that are brand new recruits that we train. We try to maintain like a 1-to-2 instructor to student ratio for basic classes, so you have a lot more eyes on the range as opposed to lots of students being able to do lots of unsafe things without anybody watching them. So,
Primary use is only going to be Leo for this.
yes, sir.
Any other questions for that? Thank you.
Welcome.
Well, the Detective Sergeant did an excellent job with his presentation, I thought, with the information, and so, my staff report, I'm not going to repeat a lot of what he said, but I think I'm gonna steal portions of his, PowerPoint, if that's okay, and then I'll just kinda hit some of the highlights that, I have in my report here. This is obviously landfill property, and you've got South Mohawk Road, running north-south, and then Clark Road, east-west, and then up in here toward the north is gonna be Fourth Avenue. So, several months ago, the county vacated this portion of Mohawk Road, so the landfill could expand their operations. The current landfill, building is over here, it's now being moved over in this location. And so with that road vacation, there's not gonna be, obviously, the public, driving between the range and the landfill anymore. Right now, there's a cul-de-sac that's down here that was recently built, so people coming from Blanchard Avenue from the south, they come up, they'll hit the cul-de-sac and they'll have to turn around, so you're not gonna have an issue of errant shots being, going across the road and potentially hitting, the traveling public. So that situation is taken care of. I'd also mention that KDHE had to approve this land use, due to the fact that, this is landfill property and was supposed to be strictly used for landfill purposes here. And so in your packet, you do have an email from KDHE stating that they have approved of the Sheriff's Department constructing this range down here. You heard testimony that they're looking at right now about having a public water line extended down from the city of Hutchinson or using potable water. That's still up in the air right now, but it's not necessarily part of this proposal here. They're not gonna be able to get a well drilled down there for drinking purposes. You heard they'll have a well for irrigation purposes. You heard testimony that he's going to be getting trees planted along the perimeter to kind of help with noise abatement. It's not gonna do foolproof, but it's gonna help somewhat. And they're going to plant other decorative trees on the property as well. You heard testimony that the property was gonna be lit for security purposes and also fenced. So the rest of my report deals again with the factors you need to review for every type of land use case and base your recommendation on those factors here. Staff recommended approval of this request based on the 9 factors, and then I attached 4 conditions of approval. Did not have anybody from the public comment in writing to me. You did receive 1 comment from AT&T that was included in your packet, and then I believe you do have some additional comments that were submitted tonight in there. I briefly looked at a lot of them, and I would just comment that a lot of those types of questions are really not something that this board has anything to do with. Talking about who's gonna build the berms or putting it out to bid, those are all types of questions that are really something that we don't address in a land use decision.
These are just phone or email contacts or items that you gave us here or what?
Yeah, those are written comments that I received in your comment sheet. I don't record verbal conversations that I have with people either on the phone or in person, but for the fact that I don't want to misinterpret what somebody is saying. Those are strictly written comments that I have received.
Just a variety of various people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Those were sent to all property owners, obviously, but yeah, we did not have
Yeah,
any.
within 1,000 feet, there's not
Within
much in
1,000
there.
feet,
Yeah.
but yeah, no written comments were submitted, so yes. So with that, I just answer any questions.
Mark, could you go back to that previous slide?
The aerial?
Yeah, so the entrance will come in off of Mohawk, but will they be coming from the north, coming south to get to that entrance, or will they be coming?
Coming from the south.
They'll be
coming from
coming
the
from
south.
Blanchard up to the driveway?
Yes,
So that cul-de-sac would extend a little further, so you could get to the,
that cul-de-sac's not gonna extend, for the cul-de-sac is where it's at right now. The driveway is right here.
so how do you get to the driveway? That's my question. You come from.
The road is still open at this point, the cul-de-sac is sitting right here, so it's just off the cul-de-sac.
Well, it'd come off the cul-de-sac.
It'll come off the cul-de-sac.
And then is Mohawk, can you still drive down that road, even though it's closed?
I'm not sure. It's closed, but, I mean, landfill personnel, what they're gonna be doing, they'll be crossing the old road right away, but the public cannot. The public cannot drive here anymore, it's being gated off up here.
Okay.
You know, the new landfill facility is up in this area, and so people will come down Mohawk Road, and they'll come down a little bit here, and then essentially enter into the facility here. But yeah, this area here, the public is not allowed to travel. Now, there still may be some resemblance of the road that landfill staff can drive on, but the public cannot drive down this.
So access to this would probably be coming from South Hatch across Blanchard and then up on Mohawk.
Blanchard north to Mohawk, where the cul-de-sac is, and the driveway is right here. The parking lot is right here. In your site plan, if you couldn't read it, this is the proposed lagoon location. And then right here, these are concrete slabs. They weren't labeled in the site plan.
Okay.
So,
Any other questions for staff?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience who would like to comment toward this case? Please state your name and your address.
Kent Clark, 3104 West Clark Road. This is the first time I've seen the plans, so I'm just sort of looking at them. I live up in this corner about right here, half a mile. I have a water well for my house. This is our property here. I have a water well right here in the corner. Mark, you said that they couldn't put a water well on this property?
not for drinking purposes, they can't,
Why not?
because of the contamination of the ground, because landfill.
So you're saying my water's polluted here?
I'm not saying that, I'm just saying that a water well will not be issued by the health department. So I don't know about your well, depending on how old it is.
All right. How tall are these berms gonna be? Do you know?
I think it was stated 26 feet.
26.
26 feet.
Yeah.
All right, this is a good shot here. Okay, the landfill is here with the, now Don, you might be able to answer this. How tall is the landfill right now? 40 foot?
I don't know.
The proposed new landfill is they're going to raise it, what, 25 foot? Is that correct?
Over the landfill, I don't know.
Wish Megan was here. The proposed new landfill, they're going to add on top of the old landfill, 25 foot. Now, this berm, how high is it going to be to protect the public from stray bullets. This way, shooting a long rifle this way, 96 bypass gets off 6th Street here. How high is this berm going to be? To protect the cars, because, what is it? The bypass is probably every bit of 30 foot high to get onto 6th Street. How high is this berm going to be? I don't know. The public's going to be here dumping their trash out because the public does go to the landfill. They dump their trash out. You have the employees up here. Here again, I have a problem with what's the height of the berm.
I think straight.
If you're shooting 400 yards this direction, if you have an errant shot, will 96 be a problem? A 308 sniper rifle, it has a range of 5,600 yards. It's 3.5 miles. So you could hit, if there, God forbid, if there's a shot go errant, they shoot from here, it could hit Main Street of South Hutch. That's how far the bullet could travel. I just need to know how tall these berms are. And what was this berm? This one here?
Just another berm.
Which way will you be shooting?
That one will also be to the west. Or I'm sorry, to the east.
This one will be shooting to the east too. I'm just saying it's a safety issue. That's all I have.
To the west of where he was talking about, I believe that's where those water retention is, those ponds.
That's correct. That's correct.
Yeah, if you look there.
But the entrance to 6th Street is above that.
Yeah, I was talking west.
Yeah, here's the pond. So here, property is right there.
That's
and then-
correct. My property is here. Our property is here. They're shooting long guns from the west to the east. I'm talking about traffic getting off here, getting on to 6th Street. They raised the landfill up 25 foot here. They're gonna be shooting right at the public, towards the public. I'm not saying they're shooting at them.
My office is just straight east there.
Well, here again, you got coke here. You got Morton salt here. You got all these high pressure lines here. You got a high pressure line here. I'm just saying, is it a safety issue? I don't have anything against the sheriffs. I'm just saying, is it a safety issue? That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? You have anything to add?
Andy Clark, 1317 West 82nd. I'm at the Clark property, that's my dad. I'm there every day, all day pretty much. What I'm worried about is safety for 96 Hot Bypass would be my biggest issue because of 6th Street being so elevated. That's one thing, and then the high pressure lines at One Oak. I deal with One Oak, farm their ground. I see how precautious they are of everything, just the things they go through. And I don't know why they're not here, but I think the high pressure lines around that territory in proximity of the long range rifles would not be a good idea. Also, where the proposed site is in a previous county commission meeting. Ron Hurst, he asked the commission if they could sell, when they were talking about the landfill property, if they could sell the landfill property to generate revenue for Reno County. And they said, no, we cannot do that because we have to use all of that dirt for the landfill as it sits right now to elevate that, the existing landfill. So that's what I have. And then we talked to Megan Davidson, the boss out at Reno County Landfill. She also stated that, well, they wouldn't need that dirt if they use that dirt underneath this proposed site for 20 years. Well, if they need the ground in 20 years, what do? Do we get rid of this? So they can use that dirt as what it was supposed to be beforehand. So pretty much what I'm saying is also a safety issue also. I mean, that's my main concern of the whole thing. So, thank you.
Would you like to rebut those comments? You do, go ahead and step up to the podium.
No, I'm okay. I don't
You're
have
good?
anything, yeah.
Okay. Staff, do you have anything to rebut there?
I don't have any other comments.
Okay.
I've got a question.
You can go right ahead.
So what are the likelihood of stray bullets? Is that something we should?
I mean, I'm not gonna say never, but we take a lot of care to make sure that that doesn't happen. The people that will be shooting to the east there are not what I would classify as newer or rookie people. They're people that have a lot of experience and have been to a lot more training in order to be able to better handle a weapon. So it's not like you're putting a brand new person out on a range and no training, no experience, and letting them shoot out on that side.
Any other questions? Applicant or staff?
The eyebrow,
Yes, sir.
that comes back out over,
Yeah, at an angle, it comes off the top, kind of
Okay.
at a 45-degree angle.
That wood, steel,
Most likely, it'll be built out of a combination of like bridge timber and metal just to protect it on the outside.
so that will make the berm's 26 feet, this'll add some additional height.
It'll add some additional height, yes.
typically, that would typically come out over the lip of the berm, if you want to call it, at the top. It's going to come out a certain distance from that top of that to catch those ricochets. There shouldn't be any.
I'm a visual guy. Berm is, we're pretty close. This is a side view of the berm.
Yeah, I mean, the back will be considerably
Yeah,
more sloped.
the angle is probably off, but the idea is there, and then this thing, there,
Correct.
Comes out.
come out like so.
Yeah.
Correct.
Gotcha. How high up does that extend? Do you have any idea?
Potentially up to another 6 feet,
6 feet?
potentially. Don't hold me to that number.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing portion of this case. Is there any discussion? If none, the chair will entertain a motion.
I'd move that case 2021-10, requested by Reno County applicant, Reno County Sheriff's Department, requesting a conditional use permit from the Reno County zoning regulations to establish a firearms training facility and range on a portion of the parcel land zone AG agricultural land district be approved based on the 9 factors and 4 conditions listed in the staff report and as heard at this public hearing.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Staff, call the roll.
Martin?
Yes.
Seltzer?
Yes.
French? Jurgensen?
Yes.
October 12th is the next available county commission meeting, so I'd expect this case to be on that meeting at 9 a.m.
9 a.m. 9 a.m. Thanks.
Yep.
Okay.
You guys have anything else for me?
Thank you.
You're done.
You guys have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next item of business will be case 2021-11, a proposed text amendment to Article 15-109 2A, Article 17-1043 of the zoning regulations related to the 2,000 square foot maximum square footage accessory building permitted on residentially zoned parcels.
Hey, Board, last month, this board set a public hearing for today's date to consider this text amendment. As you know, for the last several months, we've been kind of working on changing the language for the maximum square footage of sheds that, shed size that we allow on properties. And so the board set that public hearing date, and so that's what the purpose of this meeting is tonight. What I would tell the board is that as part of my requirements, we sent this notice to all of the townships and all of the cities that would be affected potentially by this change in our zoning regulations. And so what that means, cities and townships out in the western part of the county that are currently unzoned did not receive that because this change in our regulations does not affect them, but everybody in the eastern part of the county or the zone area did receive a notice from me, including the city of Mount Hope, which is within 3 miles of the Reno County border. And I did not have any other comments from any of the cities or any of the townships regarding this text amendment. I think we've been over this several months, and so I don't know if I need to go over the particulars of that again, but I certainly will if you want, but I stand for any questions.
After this, the next step is it goes to the county commission. Do they go?
Yep, after this step, it would go to the county commissioners for acceptance of that, and then based on that, then we would have to publish it in the paper, not necessarily the whole change in our regulations, but some form, of that. And then after that, then it becomes official, then I will change the actual zoning regulations at that point in time and post that on the website.
Effective, what, by November?
Well, the next time I can get this on is October 12th potentially, so yeah, potentially sometime in November, because then after that, we would do a resolution. And so that's gonna take probably the end of October, and then publication would occur maybe sometime the first week in November with that. So by then, that regulation would be effective and complete at that point in time.
Wheels move slowly.
Yeah, they do. Unfortunately, we do. Yeah, that's kind of the process. I mean, this is just the first tiny step in that. I might add that this regulation was posted on the homepage of the county website for people to see, and that's what my legal notice said for people that were interested in that. They could go to the website and look at it, or come to my office. But yeah, it's a long process here to get it done. It's even a little bit longer now with the commissioners going to 2 meetings a month, but we're moving through that process.
But we don't have any shed applications or considerations in the next month.
Correct. No, I have not had any for a few months, so that's kind of good news. And so anybody that would be wanting to do something like that, I would probably advise them of this proposed change and see what they would do with, and kind of encourage them to wait a month if possible.
We need to make a motion to adopt this?
Yeah, I was amiss in my haste to get everything on the agenda and complete for you for this meeting. So yeah, I would just need a motion to accept the text amendment as before you, or make any suggested changes that you see in the wording. It'd be as simple as something like that.
Yep, I think we could close we can close the public hearing portion of this. And so we can have some, should we entertain a motion first and then discuss? It probably ought to be the right way.
Yeah, that's usually the way it is. Make a motion to accept or reject or table and then discussion.
Chair will entertain a motion.
I move that we accept the proposed text amendment as presented to us.
Been moved and seconded. Now let's talk. Is there any discussion?
We talked about it quite a bit.
We've been pouring over the project.
Just
right?
did.
Yeah. Yep, Jack's studying it there, so I just want to make you, you're good?
Yeah,
All right.
I'm fine.
Staff, call the roll.
Martin?
Yes.
Seltzman?
Yes.
French?
Yes.
Pearson?
Yes. Next item of new business is discussion on a possible text amendment to the R1 Rural Residential Zoning District regarding request to construct multiple dwellings on a parcel.
So last month, I believe it was the pleasure of the board to put this on the agenda for discussion, further discussion on this month. Given the fact that we have 4 members, we can certainly discuss, or if you'd like to put this off another month in the hopes that we would have a full board that's healthy, we can certainly do something like that. Or if you have some additional thoughts after thinking about that from last month, I'd be certainly open to that.
I'm open for some discussion, but I think, in my opinion, as any decision, we probably ought to wait for a full board.
Yeah.
I guess, you know, see, I missed last month.
Yeah. So I can.
I haven't had a chance to go back and look at the meeting, so.
Okay. So I can briefly catch you up, Mr. Seltzer. So I recently, in the last couple of months, had a gentleman approach me on parcel number 4 in your colored map. And parcel number 4 is a 19.1 acre piece of ground, and their desire is to construct another dwelling on that. The parcel obviously meets the minimum requirement of 3 acres. He would be able to split his ground easily for the construction of another dwelling. What's stopping this or preventing this in a way is the fact that he doesn't have a lot of road frontage out there, and all divisions of land need to have the proper road frontage. And so we're running into a little bit of an issue with that, because in order to get road frontage, he's got to plat, and then he'd have to construct a public road to be able to get access to the back part of his property. And that's certainly okay, but it seems like it might be a little bit overkill just for an additional house. And a lot of people that want to divide their property, at least initially, just want another house. And because of the way this parcel is shaped, he's not gonna have enough road frontage to be able to do that. Our regulations also have width to depth ratios that have to be met. And so you can't do a long skinny tract like that. Like if somebody wanted to divide their land like this right now, it would not be allowed with our current regulations, because it would not meet the width to depth. It's a 3-to-1 ratio. So if you have, for example, 300 foot of road frontage, the maximum depth you could have would be 900 foot.
So in this instance, is he gonna subdivide that property and sell off the back part so somebody can build a house? Or is this like a mother-in-law house or something?
No, this would be like another dwelling for actually a family member.
Okay.
And stuff. And so, now right now, obviously, once that's done, then anybody could buy that property, and it wouldn't have to be a relation,
But it wouldn't be, is it gonna be subdivided where it's on a separate tract?
yes, it would. It would be a separate tract, a separate taxing parcel. Yeah. And so,
But he'd still own it. He's not selling it to the
Yeah,
family.
he would still own it,
he would still own it. He would still,
but he could sell it at some point.
he could sell the whole, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
he would sell the back portion.
Or he can sell either
Or he
front
can sell
portion,
either
back
one.
portion, or both portions, or whatever he wants to do, so.
And is he just gonna use the existing driveway for access in there, or create something different? Or you don't know?
You wouldn't be able to do that because there's no road frontage. Now, typically, if you could have public road frontage, then I don't care how you access the property, so long as you have road frontage onto a public road. So if somehow, some way, this new parcel would touch another public road, but he wanted to use that existing driveway, I don't care about that. It's a private driveway if he wants to access it. But if something happens and the relationship with the other property owner goes south, then this person could put a new driveway in onto the county blacktop or township road and still have access to his property versus having to deal with an unruly property owner. And so, And I just picked this area of land, number one, because that's where the concern was. But if you look at parcels 1, 2, 3, 6, and 5, all of those parcels have the same issue as that. So the request of the board was, is there something that we can change or need to change in our regulations? Or is it just, you have to plat your land and subdivide it? And it can be that. And so that's where I just told the property owner that I would bring this issue, if you will, to the planning commission and see if they want to direct staff to try and come up with a solution or just leave it as is.
I think some of the issues that you start to see are kind of safety. You know, you're gonna get houses back in there. Is it gonna get harder to get a fire truck or an ambulance in there? And you also start thinking, okay, so how many 3 acres would they carve out of that? You know, is there a limit on what you'd allow?
Yeah.
I mean, those are kind of the issues that come up, but, you know, just when you look at somebody who's got 20 acres and should they be able to have 2 houses there, it seems like that seems sort of reasonable. It's just the kind of access.
Yeah, it's just that.
Because, I mean, looking at the photograph, looks like his access is along a driveway
Yeah.
coming alongside that, the property to the east of that little piece along the.
Yeah, that's the one that he just recently created. And the little square that you see right there, that's another parcel. And that was, I believe, I think that was the original homestead that I think his mother is living in right now. And then we allowed another house to go on the other parcel, which is parcel 4. So now we're talking about essentially a third house going in out there. But then, like you said, he's got 19 acres, so he could have 3 or 4 more houses potentially out there, depending on what kind of regulation change we would
Yeah,
do.
we get into the back part, I mean,
Yeah.
you've got buildings, you've got tree rows and everything else as far as preventing access. He's gonna have to go over to the west side to get through or cut down trees.
And that was the thought, is they would just have a driveway that goes to the west and go back up into the northern 5 acres, say, for example, and then the relation would build their house back there. But our regulations, as they're written today, prevent that without going through a platting process and construction of a public road.
So you list conditional use permit or a special exception as possibilities. Currently, we could do either one of those?
Currently, no.
No.
No, the 8 options that I provide you on the back side of my memo are things that we could do through a text amendment if we chose to do something like that. And I was just kind of brainstorming, throwing out anything that would be a possibility. That's something that staff would probably really have to think about here, and I think the planning commission would also have to think about, because doing something like that could have long-lasting ramifications with that.
Sorry.
If we allow a conditional use permit on parcel 4, well, why would we deny one on, say, parcel 5, or why would, the justification of our actions, I think, would be hard to do.
Yeah.
And then once if you have an area like this with that many long skinny lots, pretty soon you got 25 houses out there.
Yep.
So, well, and it has deeper ramifications, because we had, when we were putting together oh geez, trying to think of it now, but anyhow, we were getting public input for the comprehensive plan. There were some comments in there that stated they wanted to be able to do what they wanted with their land without having to subdivide it and make a public road access into it. So this has some, we gotta be careful what we ask for, because this could open that up.
Right.
Anybody with a pasture could put a gravel road through it and sell lots off of it and have no regulation.
So.
And then someday they'd want the township to take care of it.
Correct. And it's not up to spec, the drainage is poor, the list goes on and on.
Yeah.
Or you got several houses under different ownerships, but they're all using the same driveway. and
That's
they
correct.
Have to.
That's correct.
Part of the options I provided the board last month, Steve, was that, I could call this gentleman in and ask him to come in and discuss his situation with the board if you wanted additional input other than from staff. And like I say, I'm not saying any of these 8 here are viable options, I'm just saying it's an option that I was just thinking of.
I think it's easier to think about it in terms of what it means across the zoned areas than it is to think of it in somebody's
Yes.
specific situation, because you're kind of sympathetic to the particular issue they want to do.
Right.
But you want to think about it generally and how it's going to impact land use across the zoned areas.
And development,
And
period.
potential development, yeah.
I think you're gonna lose kind of control, I think, as far as land development. You start allowing multiple homes basically on one parcel of land. And you've got all the safety sanitation issues with wells and septic systems and all this kind of stuff to deal with. And I know they all have to comply with those things via the health department, I would assume. But somehow you have to regulate, that so that you don't get somebody putting too much stuff on a small piece of land. I mean,
Then you'd run into financing issues, not that that's our problem, but, somebody's child wants to build a house back there and they want to borrow money, but then it's not their ground.
Yeah.
We see plenty of these in my area where we're not zoned, And typically, they're family members and they stay in the family for a long time, but at some point, they may change hands, and then you gotta deal with those tricky issues.
That's just the tricky issue they have to deal with for putting multiple houses up.
But you're right, Lisa, we need to think of this as a zoned area issue, not just specific to this particular, area, because there is an option that he can do to get what, they want. It's just costly, and it's, not necessarily what they want to do. They're not looking at subdividing the whole property, they want another one, but yet, our regulation, it's just the way the parcel was split during the time that it was split, it was perfectly fine, but now it just doesn't conform to our current standards, so.
Where's this at?
I didn't really want to say, I can say it's southeast Reno County.
Okay.
That's where it's at. I purposely left off the road names and stuff just because I didn't want to kind of skew your opinion in one way or the other, but, in the southeast area of the county.
Okay.
If that's okay.
So this person, they would still have to cut off a little skinny portion of the property for a driveway to get to the back?
Or for access, yeah.
Yeah.
You'd have to have
But you need 165 feet
Yeah.
minimum.
Just like property 6 did.
Yeah.
I don't know if they'd necessarily have to carve out a piece for a drive, but they'd have to have a binding legal agreement.
Well, it'd have to be ownership. They'd have to have ownership to the road.
Yeah.
So, 165 feet minimum, 330 feet minimum depth. Well, those two numbers together don't add up to 3 acres. And so you're looking at giving me probably more frontage, like say 200 feet, for example. So that's gonna essentially take up all of the frontage along this parcel right here. And we can't make the existing house, an existing parcel non-conforming when we're trying to make a new parcel conforming. And so, see, like today, these types of parcels unfortunately would not be allowed, fortunately or unfortunately, would not be, allowed under our current subdivision regulations. We do have, there's 2 things that they can do to get another house out there. Both of them weren't necessarily viable. In one situation, you could do a guest house out there in like an accessory building. You can just make living quarters. The kicker with that is you can't have a full kitchen in it, can't have a separate address, can't have like separate utilities or anything like that leading to that. It's just meant for temporary guests. The other thing that you could do is you could do a manufactured home out there. You would not be splitting the parcel, but the manufactured home would be for, say, the care of your elderly parents or a child in need. And we did one a few years ago for a gentleman. That's a situation where you can put a manufactured home on the property. You're not splitting the property by any means. You're just allowing this other home to go out there to help care for your elderly parents. And then when that situation changes, then the mobile home comes off the property. And so it's not a permanent structure. That's
Straighten my mind again, you talk about manufactured home, you know, the semantics. Are you talking about mobile homes or modular homes?
mobile home, then, the way you're terming it.
Mobile
home.
Okay.
Something that can be just pulled off the property, because it's temporary. It's a temporary situation to care for your child or your parents, what have you. And then once that situation changes, then the mobile home comes off the property.
Not
And you're back,
where they're
you're
gonna
back.
set it on a foundation.
Right, and you're back to one dwelling again, so. So that's kind of the background, probably a little longer maybe than what you wanted, but, so we can talk about it again with the full board potentially if you
Let's
want.
talk about it again with the.
What's the frontage rule?
165 feet,
Okay.
165 foot, 330 foot of depth. Well, I can put that on for October then if you like, and then I'll report to the owner what we've been talking about the first couple of months here, and we might have a decision or a direction maybe in October.
What else have we got in October?
No public hearings. No public hearings.
Is there any other homework you'd like to tell us that we might have?
Yeah, anything else you wanna talk about, Mark?
I don't have anything now. Sure, now that you asked, Mr. Chairman, I have three things I've been thinking about here a little bit. First one, I haven't provided any training to the board this year. We've been a little bit busy with some big cases here. The training was probably gonna be done by me potentially, so what I'd request the board is if you had any topics you'd like to discuss, to maybe give me those topics, and I thought, maybe we could have at some point, a roundtable discussion. I don't know if it'd be this year. You might have noticed, we're gonna have two members leaving this board. Unfortunately, Ms. French, is gonna be termed out, but we're gonna see if we can change that rule by then. Second one is Bruce. Bruce has decided not to return to the board next year. And so I don't know if I want to do training for just 5 years. I'd like to have that training incorporated with the new members. Now, if we can get the new members somewhat appointed before the first year, then maybe we could do that training, later this year sometime with them. So I think for right now, though, I'd like, if you guys think about something that you'd like to maybe have more discussion on or more, thoughts on, then just email that to me or let me know, and we'll try and put something together for you guys on that. But I'm supposed to give training to you guys every year. We're required to do that, and it's getting that time of the year. It's late and stuff, so.
We get
We
educated
did
every
the
meeting.
school of hard knocks all year
Yeah.
long.
Second thing, is another potential text amendment. I was talking to a gentleman this week, and I had to deny them a permit for a shipping container in an R3 zoning district. We allow a shipping container in the ag and the R1 zoning district. We prohibit shipping containers in R2 and R3 zoning district. This person is in an R3 zoning district. He's in a platted subdivision of about a half-acre lot, and they would like to purchase a shipping container to be able to store some of their residential items in. So I was talking to his significant other, and unfortunately I had to deny them a permit, deny them even making an application for a permit. And so the owner of the property called me and asked me what he could possibly do to change that regulation. I said, well, I can bring this topic up to the planning commission and see if there's any interest in allowing a shipping container in the R2 or R3 zoning district. I said, with the way text amendments go, you're probably looking at 4 to 6 months potentially by the time we would write new language and vet it through this board and have a public hearing on that. And so another topic just to introduce, I can put it on for next month if you want further thoughts, I have some concerns with shipping containers, they tend to get rusty. R2, R3 zoning districts are typically gonna be parcels that are less than 3 acres, or they're gonna be in platted subdivisions, and so is that the type of structure you'd like to see in that setting?
Now, does that qualify as an accessory structure?
It is an accessory structure, yeah. Your
But-
ag district's obviously 40 acres or more, your residential R1, 3 acres to 39 acres, and so typically you're not gonna be, in a residential subdivision.
R2, R3, then would they be permitted to put in a storage shed
Yes.
instead of a shipping container?
Yes, they could. They could certainly get a storage shed, sturdy build,
Something in
or
there, something
whatever.
like that to put in there. But, so it basically, it would look like a building rather than a
So
metal
as the
storage.
current regs state right now, anything under 2,000 square feet of accessory building, all they do is get a permit and they're building.
Yes.
So a shipping container is not possible.
A shipping container is not possible,
No,
because a shipping
Okay.
container is for
I'm just trying
shipping
to
goods.
it's not
Understand
considered
so
being
I
an
can-
accessory building.
It is an accessory building, but it's specifically prohibited
okay.
in the regulations.
All right.
For that, yeah, so, yeah, it'd be a type of accessory structure, it's just prohibited,
With you.
so.
I've seen some pretty cool shipping container conversions too.
I think
you know.
what he's talking about, you're not gonna see it.
Yeah.
So, I can put that on as a topic potentially in October, and maybe you can give me a direction on what you wanna do there. I can maybe get, a memo to the board potentially, pros and cons. We'll see, but yeah, he would,
And we may decide as a complete board to say,
Yeah,
and move on.
forget it, yeah. Don't worry.
I told him that that's potential, but I said he wanted to know what the process was, and I said I could certainly put that to the planning commission. I could also invite him here in October if the board would like.
I don't think so. I think
Not
we
this
can
point.
review the regulations, and if it's kind of like this lot split thing. I think we can review it and determine what's
You
going
can
on.
just give me a direction and I can report back from there.
That's my feeling.
Yep.
I don't want to speak for anybody else, but that's my feeling.
All right.
Okay.
Last?
Last one, it's the hot topic that was
Last two or
hit
three.
hit the headlines today.
So as you may or may not have known, the Board of County Commissioners on Tuesday passed the solar farm. So that was approved. So there you go.
You're just dragging this out.
You're dancing around the fire. Let's get the marshmallow on the stick and get a little.
Yeah, so then, what they ended up doing there is declaring a moratorium on commercial wind regulation, and then they tabled indefinitely the text amendment that we had the public hearing on. With that, tabling them indefinitely, they directed staff and the planning commission to bring forth to them a new text amendment that essentially will prohibit commercial wind in the current zoned area of the county. So that is something that staff will be working on. Eventually, we will bring it to this board for an initial review, and then require you guys to set a public hearing date for that. Along with that text amendment, we need to do a text amendment to the comprehensive plan, because as you know, the purpose of the comprehensive plan is to govern land development in the county, and it sets out policies. The zoning regulations and the subdivision regulations are tools that we use to implement the comprehensive plan. And so if we prohibit wind with our text amendment, the zoning regulations, that's gonna be kind of in conflict with some of the language that is in the comprehensive plan. So another amendment, if you will be to amend that comprehensive plan.
Do you have to do a text amendment if you change the comprehensive plan?
Yes, that's a public hearing, text amendment there. I haven't looked at that closely yet. It may be a situation where it's just eliminating words. It may not be changing any words, but it may be scratching through words. And then lastly, the commission directed us to create a brand-new zoning district for the unzoned area of the county that will only regulate commercial wind. It's not gonna regulate any other type of land use. It's not going to require zoning permits for any structure. I might add, except for structures in a floodplain, you still have to get a permit from me on that. The new zoning district will just regulate commercial wind, and that's it. Everything else will remain the same, except for the fact that if a wind company wants to put a project out in the western part of the county, it would require the conditional use permit. But everything else will be the same out there. It'll be treated as unzoned, it's just gonna be regulating commercial wind. And so the text amendment will have to, number one, prohibit wind in the current zoned area of the county, and then we will have to create a new wind zoning district in order to add that to our current zoning map. All this will take a public hearing before this commission, and then this commission will make a recommendation, just like on any other case, to the county commissioners. And so you can choose to recommend approval, you can choose to recommend denial, you can make changes if you want, and then all of that will go eventually to the county commissioners. Then once all that's done, then I would anticipate them taking off the table the current regulations, the proposed regulations that we wrote and adopted, recommended for adoption. And then they'll have to make any kind of changes to those regulations if they want.
And they want it all by December 27th.
All right, with December 27 as the end goal, what is what?
That's a Monday.
Yeah, working backwards.
I think
What does that mean for you and us?
it's gonna be difficult. I don't know.
That's a big 3 months worth of, we got 3 months of some long meetings coming up.
It's too late for October for a public hearing. Obviously, we don't even have it written. There's a lot of work that has to go in as far as, we still have to notify the townships. We have to notify all the townships now. We're gonna have to notify all the cities, plus any other city that's outside of the county, such as like the city of Sterling. I think they're gonna be within 3 miles of the county, so they would technically have to receive a notice. So there's a lot of work that has to be done to make this legal.
So is that December 27 date, is that a proposal in the commissioner's hands, or is that something that they just need to see some activity from this board?
Undetermined. I can't answer that.
My understanding is that they would like to have it in their hands. And that's straight from one of the horse's mouths, so to speak.
I think they'd like to have it in their hands, and I think December 27th is a Monday, and so at that time, I think their hope was that the moratorium would expire on that Monday. All of this would be in their hands on December 28th for potential adoption. So that way, there's not a gap between the moratorium and whatever regulations that they want to put in place at that point in time.
Okay, I understand we got a lot of work to do. Now let's ask the $100 question, can we do it?
It'll be difficult. I think it's gonna be hard. We're gonna do our best to do that.
I mean, we've done some pretty amazing stuff when we went through the wind energy regulations and the proposed regulations. We did a lot of work in a hurry there. I just understand that this might be a little bit of the same kind of workload that's gonna go into it.
It's gonna be a lot.
No, I mean,
But it's not gonna be writing it from scratch like we did with the wind regulations. We did a lot of just brainstorming, where this is just gonna have to make sure that what we have is solid enough for the next level.
Well, the banning of wind in the zoned area, which is just a geographical area, it will be that. So that decision will be, are you willing to ban wind in that area or not? So I don't see that taking a long time.
I'm more concerned with the other 2/3 of the county, what's gonna
The other
happen with all
2/3
that.
is whether you decide that you want that to be zoned for wind only, and we're still not talking about regulations at that point. So that's decision, do you want that to be zoned for wind only or not? So I don't know how much thought that takes. And then And then after that's done, and then the comprehensive plan, it's like what Mark said, I think that's eliminating some sentences or something, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
We're not that deep.
I'm gonna
yet.
go back to my original question, okay? It sounds like our board's heavy lifting may not be as heavy, but what about staff? Are we gonna be able to make that 1227 goal?
It's gonna be tight. I mean, we're gonna have to,
It sounds like we're gonna have a public hearing in November.
It may be
sometime in November.
like the notices and just the timing of it may be the trick.
Yeah.
Just getting things done in time to get a public notice out and
'Cause
then
it's-
get things scheduled.
20 days in advance of the public hearing, it's, notifying the townships, it's notifying the cities, putting stuff on the website, making sure that the text amendment is solid. I mean, there's a lot of review that has to go through legal to make sure, so it could be tight with that, but we're gonna do our best. I've already started part of it, but I'll be able to have an update for you in October. And if I feel like we're close, then, we may be able to set a public hearing date in the October meeting for sometime in November, if you don't want to do it on a regularly scheduled day, so I would.
So our regular scheduled meeting in December would be the 16th.
Yeah.
We could have a public hearing on the 24th.
This special zoning district.
At 2 o'clock in the
What's involved
afternoon.
in creating that? I mean, can we just arbitrarily create it, or, I mean?
Well, it's a text amendment, so.
It takes
it'd
a
be-
public hearing.
And it takes a public hearing, so, you gotta come up with the name, you gotta come
So
up with.
basically, we have a public hearing on the prohibition, we have a public hearing on the creation of the district, and then we have another one on the regulations for that special district.
But those can all be in the same meeting at the same
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
We just have different line items on the agenda.
Yeah, it's just like what we did
It's a
tonight.
really long meeting.
Yeah, it's good. It could be a sizable one.
Yeah.
We gotta decide where it's gonna be, we gotta make sure that this board is gonna be available if we do a special meeting, but like just that text amendment alone, Steve, you're looking at changing the table of contents, because I've gotta add the new zoning district in there. You're looking at creating the new district, and so there's another component of that text amendment, and so there's a lot involved. There's a lot involved with that, and we're gonna try our best to, but
I think they want it by that December, and we'll work as hard as we can for that to happen. And if it doesn't, then it'll be extended beyond that.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, because
And I think the commissioner would like to have that, but then we'll very much understand that, but we will work hard to have it, make that
I
happen.
mean, we do have for the reg part, we have a starting point at least from the regs that we sent up there. And I know they had.
Yeah, those are solid.
They had some issues with some of it. I know where they were talking about changing some of the setbacks and I don't know, some other things, but,
Well, now they have to
maybe it'd be-
look at that too, because now they're taking a portion of the county out of that picture. So now what do you want to do with the
Yeah,
regs?
does that change their view
Does
to
it
that
change or
document?
not? See what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah, so I don't know what the, anybody's a mind reader knows what the commissioner is thinking in those regards. That would be useful information or for our discussions, I would think.
What are the regulations now in the western part of the county?
None.
None?
It's zoned.
They,
do whatever they want.
they just built one, yeah. Okay.
They could. I think that's their fear, is that they could just go out there and just build one.
Yeah.
With minimal, if any, county input,
Mm-hmm.
and definitely no public hearing.
Which is true for other things too. I mean,
Yeah, it's an unzoned area.
And if they zone it for wind only, and then it goes back, and then they make changes, not changes, and adopt the regulations, then you have regulations for the 2/3 of the western part of the county.
Okay, I'm a scenario guy, so we zone it for we zone the county. We're basically basically connecting the dots on the zoned area of the county. But we're only applying the wind energy, the WEX, the wind energy conversion to that to the additional zoned area. As we move forward, what are, we look into the future, say we want to apply accessory building regulations out there. how does that happen? Do we need another public hearing that says we want to add this to the list?
Another amendment, or if you want to implement full zoning, and a portion of that, you know, we had discussions about up to 14 highway, you know, I know you had talked about that, you know. Another public hearing, at that point, we would adjust the zoning map to essentially change their zoning from wind only to A, R1, R2, R3, you know, like that, so.
Nope, I'm just,
Yep.
I'm,
That's what.
you know,
Maybe the same.
perception is reality, so I'm trying to.
Conspiracy buffs
I'm trying to look from the backside
are
of
gonna
it.
think this is for going for
They're
full
gonna
zoning.
say, oh, yeah,
They're gonna hear the
their
word
meter is,
zoning
their meter is gonna
countywide,
be,
and it'll be, okay.
yeah, their meter is gonna be in the red a little bit on that.
We have no idea where this leads to out there with those people.
No, we don't. Just our,
We'll soon know.
just our past experience says that it'll be interesting.
We'll have that hearing sometime, and you'll make a
So
recommendation just like on anything.
what does that mean for our October meeting concerning specifically this? Are you gonna have something concerning this, the WEX thing in October for us to look at, or are we gonna?
I'd like to. I mean, I think Don and I are gonna work on it and at least have a concept, and my hope would be that we have everything in place before that October meeting, that this board could potentially set a public hearing date.
So that was, you just answered my next level question. Would we have enough to make that decision?
I don't know. I mean, that's gonna be up to you guys to decide. I hope so. That's our goal. I'll just kind of leave it at
It'd
that,
be,
you know.
something realistic, more realistic to say, well, we might involve having a special meeting
Yes.
somewhere along the line.
Maybe we review.
Spread this out a
We
little
review in October, we come back and see the edits in November, regular meeting, and then a special meeting like the 1st of December, and then, or something
I
like
mean,
that, I don't know.
Mark, I have to work with Mark with all the timeframes for
Yeah,
publications and all
yeah.
that stuff, to make sure we could still meet the commission's deadline.
Correct.
Yeah, well, I need to get these caces, on the
We're getting
commissioner
far ahead of the
agenda.
horse here a little bit, I just want to, we have, there seems to be a pretty lofty goal.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty aggressive. And like I say, we have, whatever we do, we have to make it legal. I mean, there's no notices to individual property owners, but there's notices in the paper, and we're gonna use our website and the social media stuff and get it out there as much as we can. But I would hope to have something for you in October, to look at. No promises, so, I'll try and keep you up to date. I don't know, the packet might be a little late or so with that, but, we'll do our best. We'll potentially look at that, and the only other things I have on the agenda are these two topics on potential other text amendments. So if you had topics for training, we could spend some of the time on training, so it's not just.
Then we have
these
the
two-
aggregate thing to bring back up.
Oh, the aggregate, yeah, you're right, and the aggregate, that's right.
We do kind of like to stretch things out a while.
Yeah, since June. But, yeah, but, well, with that, there won't be like another staff report or anything like that with the aggregates, so just keep your staff report, because the record's closed, and so.
And the stack of stuff. It's gone from month to month to month.
It'd be a job to get it all, get the record compiled and put on their agenda, yeah, so, but, that's all I had, Mr. Chairman, if that's enough. I don't know if you got anything else for me.
The board have any other business for tonight?
No,
Entertain a motion to
so
adjourn.
made.
Moved and seconded, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign.